6 weeks after Harlem, the world was still pretending. It hadn't seen a metal man in the sky, a storm god in the desert, and a green monster tear a city street apart like paper. The headlines had already moved on, they always did. But in the places where power actually lived, behind sealed doors, under fluorescent lights, inside rooms where men spoke in abbreviations, Harlem never ended. It became policy. Deep beneath a Department of Defense facility, Emil Blonsky's cell looked less like a prison and more like a myth made physical. Reinforced glass, electromagnetic locks, climate controls so strict the air tasted thin, cameras everywhere. Too many cameras, as if the building itself was trying to convince its occupants that seeing something meant controlling it. Blonsky didn't pace. He stood very still, head tilted toward the one-way mirror like he could feel the fear on the other side. His mouth twitched faintly, almost amused, as if he already knew the shape of the next mistake. Thunderbolt Ross watched him, with the posture of a man who refused to bow. His uniform was immaculate. His eyes weren't. "You're staring at him like he's a trophy," a voice said behind Ross. Ross didn't turn. "He's evidence." Dr. Leonard Sampson stepped into the harsh light with a clipboard tucked under his arm. Hair too bright for this place. Expression too serious to be ignored. Sampson wasn't military. That was precisely why he was here. Someone who could say the words soldiers weren't allowed to say out loud. "It's not evidence," Sampson corrected softly. "It's a warning." Ross's jaw tightened. "I didn't ask for philosophy." Sampson's gaze stayed on Blonsky. "You asked for results," he said. "And results are gonna be ugly if you keep pretending this is just chemistry." Ross's eyes narrowed. "It is chemistry." "Then why does every file on Banner read like a psychological profile?" Sampson asked, quiet and direct. "Why do your incident reports mention personality shifts and dissociation, like you're chasing a man, a monster, and a third thing in between?" Ross said nothing. And in that silence was the truth. He'd read the older material, the gamma notes that didn't sound like science so much as a man splitting into categories he couldn't control, the kind of research that belonged to the part of the government that didn't admit it existed. Sampson didn't push for confession, he pushed for reality. "You can't contain this with walls forever," he said. "Not Blonsky, not Banner." Ross finally turned his head towards Sampson, eyes hard. "Banner's gone." Sampson's expression barely shifted. "Banner's running." Ross turned back to the glass. "Good." Behind the one-way mirror, Blonsky's faint smile sharpened, like he'd heard the word running and found it delicious. Far from that facility, Bruce Banner lived in the spaces between identities. He hadn't slept in a real bed in 6 weeks. He ate small amounts because hunger raised his pulse. He spoke to no one because conversation made his breathing uneven. He moved from motel rooms to storage units, to the backs of trucks, tracking his heart rate like it was a detonator. In a dingy room above a mechanic's shop somewhere along the Great Lakes, Bruce sat in the dark with a cheap laptop open, watching news footage without sound. Stark on shaky cell phone video, a red and gold blur above a desert test range. New Mexico locals gathered around a crater, whispering about a hammer like it was a fairy tale. A government spokesperson insisting none of it mattered. Bruce's hands trembled over the keyboard. "It's all happening," he whispered. He was never going to be the only monster again. His inbox held one message, untraceable. Subject line blank. "Mr. Blue is still alive. They're using your blood, a friend." Bruce stared until his eyes burned. Stearns. The name tasted like regret. He'd left Samuel Stearns in Harlem half changed, half smiling. Gamma, seeping into his mind like a promise. Bruce had hoped that problem would die quietly. Problems didn't die quietly anymore. Bruce closed the laptop and pressed his palms hard against his eyes until he saw stars. A voice inside him tried to rise, deep, impatient, furious. "Let me handle it." Bruce swallowed hard. "No." His breathing sped up. He forced it slower, counting, holding himself down in his own body. He couldn't afford anger. He couldn't afford fear. He couldn't afford to become something Ross could justify. Jennifer Walters thought she was walking into a legal nightmare. She didn't know she was walking into a gamma war. A black car delivered her to a federal building in Washington with no signage and too many locks. She sat in a conference room with a folder in front of her labeled Enhanced Containment Liability, and on the first page was a photo of Harlem, collapsed street, smoke, National Guard. On the last page was a photo of Bruce Banner. Jennifer stared at it longer than she meant to. "You knew him," an agent said carefully. "I'm related to him," Jennifer replied. "That doesn't mean I know where he is." "We're not asking you to find him," the agent said. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. "Then why show me his face?" The door opened again and Ross walked in like he owned the building. He didn't greet her politely. He didn't have that skill. "Because he's the reason your job exists," Ross said. Jennifer stood. "General Ross." "Counselor," Ross replied, eyes flat. "You're here because the world can't handle what happened in Harlem." "The world can handle the truth," Jennifer said. Ross leaned forward slightly, voice low. "The world can handle a story. Truth gets people killed." Jennifer didn't blink. "You mean it gets politicians fired?" Ross's expression hardened. "I mean it gets cities smashed," he snapped, then forced his voice quieter, like restraint was a favor. "You're going to help us keep this contained." Jennifer glanced at the folder again. "Contained how?" Ross slid another page across the table. "Extraordinary detention language, black site transfer authorization, a framework that treated the words person and weapon as interchangeable." One line sat in the center like a knife. "Gamma subjects classified as national security weapons." Jennifer looked up slowly. "You're not treating them like people." Ross's eyes didn't soften. "Banner stopped being people the moment he became a catastrophe." "That's not how the law works," Jennifer said. Ross's voice dropped. "Then the law will adapt." That was the first time Jennifer felt it, the chill behind his obsession. He wasn't trying to restore order. He was trying to seize control of a new world. That same night, a black site transport moved through Virginia under heavy escort. The trucks were unmarked, the soldiers were quiet. The cargo was sealed in a reinforced container with warning symbols that didn't match any official hazard classification, because biohazard wasn't honest enough. Inside, gamma samples recovered from Harlem and from Blonsky's containment. Blood, tissue, data drives, everything a scientist or a madman could turn into a future. Ross had ordered it moved off record. Samson hadn't liked it. "Moving it makes it stealable," Samson had said. Ross had replied, "Keeping it here makes it vulnerable." Now the convoy's front vehicle hit a spike strip that hadn't existed a second earlier. Tires blew, the truck lurched, gunfire cracked through rain, then precision. The attackers didn't spray bullets. They moved like people who knew exactly which vehicle mattered and exactly how long they had before response time arrived. The container truck's doors were cut open with something industrial. A figure in tactical gear slapped a device onto the lock. The lock disengaged. The container cracked open, and for a heartbeat, the interior glowed faintly green. Then the glow vanished under a blackout tarp as the thieves pulled the cargo out and loaded it into a waiting vehicle. A soldier screamed into his radio, voice shaking. "We've been hit. They took the package. They took the gamma." The thieves disappeared into the rain like they had never existed. All that remained were shredded tires, dead radios, and the sickening knowledge that gamma wasn't contained anymore. It was out in the world. Ross watched the security footage in a silent room at 3:14 a.m. Jaw clenched so hard it looked like it might crack. Samson stood behind him, arms folded. The air doing the "I told you so" Samson refused to say. Ross replayed the moment the container opened. The green glow, the speed, the confidence. "This wasn't random," Samson said quietly. "Someone ordered it." "I know," Ross muttered. Samson's voice tightened. "General, if Stearns is involved, Stearns doesn't matter," Ross snapped. Samson froze. "He matters if he's building another abomination." Ross's eyes stayed on the screen. Then we build the first one that obeys. Samson's stomach dropped. No. Ross turned, and there was something almost manic behind the discipline now. You think I'm going to sit here while the world fills with gods and monsters? He growled. Stark flies around like a billboard. Some hammer-wielding myth shows up in New Mexico. Banners out there. Blonsky is in a box, and now Gamma is stolen. He stepped closer to Samson, voice low and furious. This is the new world, and in the new world, strength is law. Samson's voice was tight. You're talking about making another Hulk? Ross didn't deny it. He smiled thinly, like it hurt. I'm talking about making one we can aim. Samson stared at him, dread curdling into certainty. You'll lose control. Ross's eyes gleamed with the conviction of a man who believed control was his birthright. Not this time, Ross whispered. He walked out into a corridor where everything was quiet enough to hear the machine of government breathing. Somewhere behind another locked door, a file was pulled from a safe and set on a table under harsh light, stamped in red. Project Firebrand, and they had classified. Jennifer didn't go home after meeting Ross. She drove instead, hands tight on the wheel, mind racing, anger simmering under professional restraint. She couldn't shake the look in Ross's eyes when he said the law would adapt. She couldn't shake the photo of Bruce. She pulled over on a dark stretch of road and called the only number she hadn't called in years. It rang once, twice, then connected. Silence. Jennifer swallowed. Bruce. A long pause. Then Bruce's voice, quiet, older than it should have sounded. Jen, he said, like her name was a memory he'd been afraid to touch. You shouldn't be calling this number. I'm already in it, Jennifer replied. They brought me in. Ross, Gamma detention, black sites. Bruce exhaled slowly. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, Jennifer snapped, then steadied herself. Tell me what's happening. Bruce hesitated. And in that hesitation, Jennifer heard exhaustion, fear, and the effort of a man holding something huge underwater. They stole samples, Bruce said finally. Someone's moving Gamma again. Jennifer's stomach dropped. I know. Bruce's voice went lower. Then you need to stay away from me. Jennifer laughed once, bitter. That's your plan? Run and isolate until the world fixes itself. It's the only plan that keeps people alive, Bruce said, voice strained. Jennifer's voice cracked it, anger and love colliding. Bruce, Ross is going to do something insane. Silence again. Then Bruce whispered, almost to himself, he always does. Jennifer's grip tightened on the steering wheel. What do I do? Bruce's answer came after a long pause, like it cost him. Help me burn the research, he said, before it becomes policy. Jennifer stared out at the dark road ahead and felt the shape of her life shifting. Okay, she said quietly. Tell me where. In a hidden lab beneath a government facility, technicians prepared a sealed chamber. Blood samples were removed from secure storage. A syringe was filled with green fluid that wasn't the exact serum from 2008. Refined, stabilized, renamed. On a monitor, Ross watched from behind glass. Samson stood nearby, tense, as if he could already see the disaster forming. A scientist asked, voice trembling, General, who will we test it on? Ross didn't blink. He said softly, with the certainty of obsession, on the only man willing to carry it. The chamber lights shifted to red as the door sealed with a heavy hiss. Not because a Hulk was born yet, because something else had just taken its first breath. Ross didn't sleep after Project Firebrand began. He sat behind a glass in observation rooms and watched men with degrees and clearance badges pretend they were in control of what they were doing. He watched readouts spike and settle. He watched a green line on a monitor like it was a promise. Every time someone hesitated, Ross leaned forward, voice low and lethal, and reminded them what the world looked like now. Iron Man in the sky, a hammer in the desert, a Hulk on the news. This is containment, he told them. This is preparedness. Samson watched from the edge of those rooms like a man waiting for a car crash he couldn't prevent. He was there to offer caution, but Ross didn't want caution. Ross wanted reassurance dressed up as science. "You're not making a cure," Sampson said one night, voice tired. "You're making a justification." Ross didn't look away from the sealed chamber. "I'm making a deterrent." "A deterrent doesn't heal," Sampson said. "It escalates." Ross finally turned. His eyes were too bright. "Then we escalate first." Inside the chamber, a test subject convulsed. Not Banner, not Blonsky. A volunteer on paper. A soldier in practice. Someone who had signed forms without understanding how small signatures were compared to gamma. The serum hit his bloodstream, and for a moment, nothing happened. Just sweat, trembling, shallow breaths. Then his muscles tightened like cables being wound too far. His teeth clenched hard enough to crack. He screamed as heat flooded his skin, and the lights in the chamber began to flicker. The monitors spiked. The man's pupils widened, and then his voice changed, lower, angrier, like someone else was trying to speak through his throat. He slammed both fists into the glass. The glass didn't break, but the impact rang through the room like an omen. Ross's jaw clenched in satisfaction. Sampson's stomach dropped. "Do you hear that?" Sampson murmured. "That's not strength, that's fracture." Ross ignored him. He watched the soldier's skin redden in patches, as if the body couldn't decide what it wanted to become. Not green, red. A different direction, a different personality, a different temperature. Ross's expression didn't soften. It sharpened, because Ross didn't see the warning. He saw a possibility. Meanwhile, the theft of the Gamma shipment didn't remain a mystery for long, not because the government was competent, but because the people who stole it couldn't resist leaving fingerprints. Bruce Banner tracked those fingerprints from a motel room with a cracked laptop and a trembling hand. He moved through stolen files and hacked security logs with the focus of a man trying to defuse a bomb while wearing mittens. A shell company, a private security firm, a medical research purchase order that didn't match any legitimate department, and a single recurring name in the metadata, buried in the sort of arrogant way only smart men were careless. SS Stearns. Bruce's throat tightened. He could see the pattern. Stearns wasn't building a bomb. He was building infrastructure, labs, supply routes, personnel. He was assembling the parts of a program that could survive raids and investigations. Stearns was doing what Ross was doing, just without a uniform. Bruce's phone buzzed. Jennifer Walters. Bruce stared at the screen for a beat, then answered with his voice already low, already strained. "Jen, tell me you have something," Jennifer said. Her tone was tight, controlled, the way lawyers sounded when they were terrified but refused to show it. "I do," Bruce replied. "It's Stearns. He's collecting Gamma like it's currency." A pause. "How do you know?" "Because he's not even hiding it," Bruce said, bitterness creeping in. "He thinks he's right." Jennifer exhaled sharply. "Ross is ramping up too," she said. "He's pushing enhanced containment protocols. He wants legal permission to disappear you if he finds you." Bruce's jaw clenched. "He won't find me." Jennifer's voice hardened. "Bruce, he already found your blood." That line hit like a punch. Bruce went still. Then his voice turned quiet in a way Jennifer didn't like. "What did you see?" Jennifer hesitated. "Enough to know he's testing something," she said. "They're calling it firebrand." Bruce shut his eyes and felt the old fear rise, hot and immediate. "Jen," he whispered, "you need to get out." "I'm not leaving," Jennifer snapped. "Not if this turns into another Harlem." Bruce's breath hitched. "It will be worse." Jennifer's silence was answer enough. She believed him. Bruce opened his eyes and stared at the map on his screen. "We burn Stearns' network," Bruce said. "And we burn Ross's lab if we have to." Jennifer swallowed hard. "You can't just—" "I can," Bruce cut in, voice cracking. "Because if they make another me, another him," he couldn't even say the word Hulk without feeling it stir in his spine. Jennifer's voice softened slightly. "Where are you?" Bruce stared at the screen, then at his hands. He lied. "I'm nowhere," he said. "And you need to stay safe." Jennifer's jaw tightened, hearing the lie. "Bruce." He ended the call before he could hear her beg, because the moment he heard her beg, he'd do something reckless. And reckless was how people died. Across town, Ross did something reckless anyway. He ordered Blonsky moved, not publicly, not officially, quietly. Because Ross had learned the first lesson of this new era: optics mattered. Blonsky's containment was shifted deeper underground, away from Sampson's oversight, away from prying eyes. The stated reason was security. The real reason was simpler. Ross wanted access. He stood outside the new cell and watched Blonsky through the glass. Blonsky looked at him and smiled like a man greeting an old friend. "You're still chasing it," Blonsky said, voice calm. "Still trying to bottle the storm." Ross didn't flinch. "You're going to help me," Ross replied. Blonsky chuckled. "Help you become what you hate?" Ross stepped closer, eyes hard. "Help me stop Banner." Blonsky's smile widened. "You'll never stop him," he said. "You'll only make more of us." Ross's jaw tightened. "We'll see." Blonsky leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "You ever wonder," he murmured, "why it chose him? Why not you? Why not me? Why Banner?" Ross's throat tightened. Blonsky's voice dropped, almost gentle. "Because the monster isn't just in the blood, General," he whispered. "It's in the mind." Ross stepped back like the words had teeth. Sampson was waiting for him in the corridor outside. "You moved him," Sampson said quietly. Ross didn't deny it. "He's a resource." Sampson's expression tightened. "He's a trigger." Ross's eyes flashed. "Everything is a trigger," he snapped. "I'm tired of being held hostage by fear." Sampson held his gaze. "Then you're about to learn what fear is for." Ross walked away, and Sampson watched him go, with the grim certainty of a doctor watching a patient refuse treatment. Jennifer Walters made her own decision in the days that followed. If Bruce wouldn't give her a location, she'd make one. She used her clearance to access a restricted docket, an internal chain of custody list for gamma evidence and black site transfers. It was supposed to be sealed, but sealed didn't mean unreachable. Sealed meant you needed the right key. Jennifer had keys now. Her eyes flicked across entries until she found a pattern. A recurring facility code, a recurring route, a recurring medical oversight signature that made her stomach twist. Sampson. Not because he was guilty, because he was present. Jennifer drove to the facility under the guise of legal review, her badge opening doors that were never meant to open for someone with a conscience. She found Sampson in a hallway between labs, face drawn, coffee untouched. "Dr. Sampson," she said. Sampson looked up, wary. "Miss Walters." Jennifer kept her voice low. "You know what he's doing," she said. Sampson didn't pretend confusion. "Yes." "Then help me stop it," Jennifer whispered. Sampson stared at her, the conflict plain on his face. "I can't just shut it down," he said. "Ross is Ross." Jennifer's eyes hardened. "Then help me find where he's keeping the real work." Sampson hesitated. 1 heartbeat, 2. Then he exhaled and nodded once. "Follow me," he said quietly. He led her past the official labs and into a deeper section where the air got colder and the lights got harsher and the doors got thicker. A place that felt less like science and more like confession. They stopped outside a sealed observation room. Sampson didn't open it. He didn't want her to see it and still be able to sleep, but he gave her enough. "A serum refinement chamber," Sampson said, voice tight. "And Ross has been ordering volunteer trials." Jennifer's throat tightened. "And how many have survived?" Sampson looked away. Jennifer didn't need the answer. A low alarm suddenly chirped down the hall. Subtle, internal, not meant for public ears. Sampson's head snapped up. "That's not scheduled," he murmured. Jennifer's stomach dropped. "What is it?" Sampson moved fast now, rounding the corner toward the security station. The screens showed a vehicle breach at the perimeter. Not a random attack, surgical. The same kind of precision as the gamma theft. Jennifer's blood went cold. "Stearns," she whispered. Sampson's jaw clenched, or someone using his methods. The facility's internal lights shifted. Red warnings began to bloom across monitors. Containment doors locked. And in the deepest cell block, Blonsky's smile widened, as the alarms sang through the walls, because he recognized the sound of people making mistakes. Jennifer stood in the hallway with Samson as the facility went into lockdown. The world outside didn't know. The news was busy with Iron Man politics and New Mexico rumors, and the idea that the Avengers Initiative might actually be real. But deep underground, in the places where the MCU's early days were being forged in fear and pride, something was unfolding that would either end quietly or explode into public catastrophe. Jennifer's phone buzzed in her pocket. Bruce again. She answered immediately, voice shaking. Bruce! Bruce's voice came through strained and urgent. Jen, get out of there. Her stomach dropped. How do you? I'm watching the comm bands, Bruce snapped. Someone's hitting the facility. That's Stearns' move. It's a raid. Jennifer looked at the locked doors, the red lights, the security officers running with weapons drawn. I'm already inside, she whispered. Bruce's breath hitched. Fear, sharp enough to crack his calm. Jennifer, he said, voice low and dangerous. If you're in there when this goes wrong, I can't. She heard what he couldn't say. I can't control it. Samson stepped closer, voice sharp. We have a containment breach risk, he told Jennifer, eyes on the alarms. If Blonsky gets out, Jennifer's throat tightened. What do we do? Bruce's voice cut through the phone. Raw. You leave. Now. Jennifer stared at the corridor ahead where armed men were moving deeper underground and alarms were growing louder. She turned towards Samson. Can you unlock the evacuation route? Samson hesitated, then nodded, already moving, fingers flying over the security console. Come on, he said. Jennifer ran with him, and as they sprinted toward the facility's emergency tunnel, Ross watched the breach alerts from his private office with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Because in his mind, this wasn't a disaster. It was proof. Proof that Gamma couldn't be controlled by laws or walls or ethics, only by someone willing to become the weapon first. Ross opened the firebrand file again, eyes burning. 6 weeks, he whispered to himself. 6 weeks, and the world is already trying to steal what it doesn't understand. He looked at the serum canister on his desk, green, refined, waiting. Then he whispered, almost reverent, then I'll make sure it fears me. The facility didn't go into chaos all at once. It went into it like a body going into shock, systems locking down, lights turning red, alarms escalating in layers, doors sealing as if the building was trying to hold its own organs inside. Jennifer and Samson sprinted through a narrow service corridor, while the ventilation overhead rattled with distant impacts. Somewhere behind them, gunfire snapped and then stopped, too fast, too surgical, followed by the low metallic groan of something heavy being forced open. Samson glanced back once, face pale. They're not here for the building, he whispered. Jennifer's jaw clenched. They're here for what's inside. Samson nodded, voice tight. Blonsky, the serum, Banner's data. Jennifer's phone buzzed again in her palm. Bruce still on the line, his voice a harsh whisper over static. Jen, listen to me. If Ross loses control in there. Jennifer cut him off, breathless. I know. I'm trying to get out. The corridor ahead ended at an emergency hatch. Samson slammed his badge against the scanner. Denied. He tried again. Denied. Jennifer's stomach dropped. What? Samson stared at the screen, dread sharpening. Ross locked it, he said. Jennifer's blood went cold. He locked the evacuation route. Samson's voice cracked. He locked everything. Behind them, a deep crash rolled through the facility like thunder under concrete. Then a sound that made Jennifer's skin crawl. A laugh. Not a normal laugh. A satisfied, breathy sound with too much confidence in it. Blonsky. Samson's eyes widened. Oh God. Jennifer grabbed Samson's arm. We can't go back. Samson swallowed hard, then yanked open a wall panel, fingers flying over wires. If I can override the junction, the lights flickered. The walls trembled. Jennifer braced herself as dust shook loose from the ceiling. The facility was coming apart, not from explosives, but from force. Something big moving through it. Something that didn't care what walls were supposed to do. Bruce's voice sharpened through the phone. "Jen, what's happening?" Jennifer swallowed hard. "Blonsky's out," she whispered. "Or he's about to be." A long, terrible pause. Bruce exhaled slowly, like he was trying to keep his heart from betraying him. "Get away from him," Bruce said, voice low. "Now." Jennifer's eyes stung. "Bruce, I don't think we can." Samson shouted in frustration as the junction sparked. Come on. Then the corridor behind them exploded inward. A reinforced door, torn off its frame, skidded across the floor like a tossed coin, and in the opening stood Emil Blonsky. Not fully abomination, yet, but not human either. He was in between, and that in between was worse, because it looked like a man turning into a weapon while still aware enough to enjoy it. His skin was thicker, ridged in places. His eyes shone too bright. He rolled his shoulders as if savoring freedom. "General Ross," Blonsky said aloud, like he was addressing an audience, "always builds the best cages." Jennifer stepped back, heart hammering. Blonsky's gaze slid to her, then to Samson. "And who are you supposed to be?" he asked, amused. Samson stood between Blonsky and Jennifer without thinking, like a doctor trying to block a disaster with his body. "Emil," Samson said, voice shaking but firm, "you need to calm down." Blonsky laughed. "Calm?" he repeated. "Doctor, I'm the calmest I've ever been." He took a step forward. The floor trembled. Jennifer's phone slipped in her sweaty grip. Bruce's voice still coming through. "Jen, run." Jennifer's lungs wouldn't work right, because the corridor was too narrow. The door behind them was locked. The junction panel was sparking uselessly, and Blonsky was smiling. Then another door opened down the hall, not torn open cleanly. Ross walked in. He looked like a man arriving late to a meeting he didn't want anyone else to attend. Behind him, armed personnel held position, nervous, weapons raised but clearly unsure whether they were aiming at Blonsky or at their own general. Ross's eyes locked on Blonsky, then flicked to Jennifer, then to Samson. His jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be down here," Ross said to Samson. Voice clipped. Samson's voice cracked. "You locked the exits." Ross didn't deny it. "I locked the problem in the room with the solution," he said. Jennifer's blood went cold. "Solution?" Ross stepped forward, eyes burning. "Banner is out there," he said. "Stearns is stealing Gamma. The world is turning into a circus of enhanced threats." He glanced at Blonsky like he was a live demonstration. "And you think I'm going to ask politely for order?" Blonsky smiled. "Oh, this is gonna be fun." Ross ignored him and looked at Jennifer, voice suddenly almost paternal in a twisted way. "You're Walters," he said. "Banner's family." Jennifer's throat tightened. "Don't use my name like you care." Ross's expression hardened. "I care about containment," he snapped, "and you're in the blast radius." Samson stepped forward. "General, this is insane. If you trigger another Gamma escalation," Ross cut him off. "I'm not escalating. I'm ending it." He pulled a canister from inside his coat. Small, sealed, green. Firebrand. Jennifer's breath caught. Samson went pale. "No." Ross held it up as if it was a medal. "You wanted a controlled Hulk," he said quietly. "Well, we're out of candidates." Samson's voice trembled. "You can't do this." Ross's eyes never left the canister. "Watch me." Blonsky's smile widened. "Oh, General," he purred. "You finally decided to join the freak show." Ross stepped toward the corridor wall and pressed his thumb to a biometric lock. A panel slid open, revealing a compact injector unit. He slotted the canister in with a smooth motion, like a man loading a weapon he'd rehearsed with in his mind 1,000 times. Jennifer's voice cracked. "Ross, stop." Ross glanced at her. For a heartbeat, his eyes showed something human, fear dressed up as certainty. Then it vanished. "I'm done being humiliated by monsters," Ross said softly. "If the world insists on monsters, then I'll be the one holding the leash." Samson's voice broke. "You're not holding a leash. You're putting it around your own throat." Ross pressed the injector to his neck and fired. For 1 second, nothing happened. Ross exhaled through his nose, like a man proving a point. Then his veins darkened beneath his skin. Heat rolled off him like sudden fever. His jaw clenched so hard his teeth squealed. He staggered one step, then caught himself, fists curling as his muscles tightened and thickened. Jennifer watched in horror as Ross's skin flushed, then deepened, then turned unmistakably red in patches, like his body was burning from the inside out. Ross's eyes widened, not with fear, with exhilaration. Blonsky laughed, delighted. Yes. Ross's spine arched, his suit tore at the seams, his shoulders broadened violently. The air around him shimmered with heat, as if his anger was becoming temperature. The transformation wasn't a clean Hulk out. It was military brutality, body converting into weaponry with purpose. Ross roared, and the corridor shook. Red Hulk stepped forward, the ceiling lights flickering, as if the building itself recoiled from him. Jennifer's body went cold. Samson stared, whispering, "Oh my God." Red Hulk turned his head toward Blonsky. Blonsky's grin became ecstatic, and then the two monsters slammed into each other. The impact ripped the corridor apart. Concrete exploded, pipes burst, water sprayed in violent arcs. Alarms died in a shower of sparks as the facility's walls stopped being structure and became collateral. Jennifer and Samson were thrown backward by the shockwave. Jennifer hit the floor hard, head ringing. Her phone skittered away, Bruce's voice cutting in and out through static. Jen. Samson grabbed Jennifer's arm and yanked her up. "We have to move." They stumbled down a side passage as the facility behind them became a battlefield. Red Hulk's roars were different from Bruce's, less animal grief, more rage given permission. Blonsky's laughter echoed between impacts, thrilled by finally having a rival who could hit back. Jennifer's chest tightened. This wasn't a fight she could argue in court. This was a fight that would leave bodies and ruin in headlines, and it was happening underground where the government could bury it with the same ease it buried secrets. Samson shoved open another emergency hatch. This one opened. They spilled into a medical bay. Bright lights, sterile smell. Too clean for what was happening a hall away. Jennifer's knees almost buckled. Samson grabbed her shoulders. "Listen to me," he said, breathless. "If Ross and Blonsky keep fighting, they'll rupture the reactor systems. The whole facility will collapse." Jennifer swallowed hard. "Then we stop them." Samson stared at her. "How?" Jennifer's phone buzzed on the floor again. Bruce calling, or Fury, or anyone who could help. Jennifer picked it up with shaking fingers. "Bruce," she gasped. Bruce's voice came through, broken by interference. "Where are you?" "At a Ross facility," Jennifer said. He injected himself." A terrible pause. Bruce whispered, "He did what?" Jennifer's eyes burned. "He's red. Bruce, he's a Hulk." Bruce's breathing became audible, fast, controlled, fighting itself. "Jen," Bruce said, voice low and shaking. "Get out. Get as far away as you can." Jennifer swallowed hard. "There's no out. We're underground, and Blonsky is loose." Bruce's voice cracked. "Jennifer, please." She heard it then. Pure fear for her, the kind he never let himself show. Jennifer's throat tightened. "Bruce, I'm not leaving people to die down here." Bruce went silent. Then his voice came back different. Quiet, resigned, dangerous. "I'm coming," he said. Jennifer's heart dropped. "No, I'm coming," Bruce repeated. "If Ross becomes that and Blonsky is loose, I'm coming." Jennifer's eyes stung with tears. "Bruce, if you come, you'll—" "I already am," Bruce whispered, and ended the call. Jennifer stared at the phone. Samson's face went pale. "He's coming here." Jennifer nodded once, jaw clenched. Then the facility shook again, harder than before. A chunk of ceiling collapsed somewhere close, dust billowing through vents. Samson grabbed a medical kit off a wall and shoved it into Jennifer's hands. "If Banner comes, and if you get caught between them," his voice cracked, "you need to stay alive." Jennifer stared at the kit like it was useless against monsters. Samson's eyes flicked to a locked cabinet behind the medbay counter. He moved to it quickly, entering a code with shaking fingers. The cabinet opened. Inside were blood bags. and one of them had a label that made Jennifer's stomach drop. Banner, Bruce, Gamma contaminated. Jennifer stared. They have his blood here. Samson nodded grimly. Ross is stockpiling him. Jennifer's jaw tightened. He's going to make more. Samson swallowed hard. Unless we destroy it. Jennifer looked down the hall where the fight raged, heat and vibration carrying through the walls. Then she made a choice. Give it to me, she said. Samson froze. What? Jennifer's voice shook. If I'm in the middle of two hulks, I need something. Samson's eyes widened. No. Jennifer, I don't have time for moral panic, Jennifer snapped. Then her voice softened. Raw. I'm scared, Leonard. Samson's face crumpled slightly. So am I. The facility trembled again, and the lights flickered as if the building was losing the argument with gravity. Jennifer's breathing became shallow. She stared at the blood bag like it was a curse. Then she whispered, if I die in here, Ross wins. Stearns wins. Everyone wins except the people we're supposed to protect. Samson swallowed hard. He looked like he wanted to refuse. Then he nodded once, devastated. He grabbed a transfusion line, and in the sterile light of a med bay, while monsters tore the earth apart nearby, Jennifer Walters lay back on a table and let Bruce Banner's blood drip into her veins. At first, it was nothing. Cold fluid in her arm, the beep of a monitor, her pulse climbing. Then heat bloomed under her skin, slow and inexorable, as if her body was waking up to a second heartbeat. Jennifer's breath hitched. Samson leaned close, eyes wide. Jennifer, talk to me. Jennifer tried. Her voice came out in a strained gasp. It's burning. Her veins darkened visibly beneath her skin, like ink spreading. Her muscles tightened. The table creaked under her grip. Jennifer's eyes widened in terror. Then she heard it. Not in the room, but in the back of her mind. Like a door opening to a deeper part of herself. Power. Not rage like Bruce's. Not hatred like Ross's. Something steady, something awake. Jennifer's breath slowed. And in the middle of the storm of pain, she made a decision that mattered more than the transformation itself she refused to break. She sat up. Samson stumbled back, stunned. Jennifer looked down at her hands. Bigger, stronger, skin tinted green, and exhaled slowly, as if she'd just been holding her breath her whole life. Oh my God, Samson whispered. Jennifer's voice came out deeper but clear, still her. Yeah, she said softly. Let's stop them. The wall behind them exploded inward. Not from a bomb, from a body. Bruce Banner, mid-change, staggered into the medbay doorway, eyes wide, face twisted in panic as the transformation overtook him. Jen, he gasped. Jennifer looked at him, green and steady, and Bruce froze. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't the only one. Then, from the corridor beyond, Red Hulk's roar shook the building again, followed by Blonsky's savage laughter, and the facility's alarms died one by one, as if the underground world had accepted what it was now. 3 Gamma Titans waking up at once. Bruce's eyes met Jennifer's. Terror, guilt, relief, and love colliding. Jennifer stepped forward, placing a huge hand on Bruce's shoulder. Bruce, she said firmly, we end this. Bruce's throat tightened. Then the Hulk took him. Green flooded his skin. His body surged. His roar filled the room like an earthquake. And Jennifer, She-Hulk now, stood beside him as the ceiling dust fell like snow. Samson watched them both, trembling, and whispered a line that sounded like prophecy. This is how the Avengers Initiative starts. Outside the facility, far above ground, a black SUV idled in the rain. Inside, Nick Fury watched a live satellite feed that kept glitching whenever the underground tremors hit. Coulson stood beside him, tense. Sir, we're getting heat signatures we can't explain. Fury's eye narrowed. Gamma, Coulson swallowed. There are multiple. Fury didn't look surprised. He looked resigned, like the world had finally reached the part of the story he'd been preparing for. 6 weeks, Fury murmured, and they're already making their own Avengers. He watched the feed shake as the underground battle escalated. Then he said quietly, "Keep it buried," and below, in the heart of a sealed black site, 3 monsters collided. Red Hulk and Abomination tearing through concrete, Hulk roaring like rage made flesh, and She-Hulk, newly born, ran straight into hell to keep the world from learning what its government had done. Because if this came to light, the world would never feel safe again. The black site facility didn't collapse all at once. It failed in sections like a body hemorrhaging. Hulk and Abomination slammed through a containment wall and disappeared into a lower level that shouldn't have existed, a place where old tunnels and forgotten foundations met the kind of hardware the government swore it didn't build. Red Hulk followed like a missile, leaving a wake of heat that warped steel beams and made sprinkler systems boil instead of spray. Jennifer, still new to her strength, still learning where her limits lived, chased the shockwaves. She didn't have Hulk's raw mass or Ross's furious heat. What she had was clarity. She moved with purpose, dragging injured personnel out of the rubble, ripping open jammed doors, keeping people alive because someone had to keep the human stakes visible in a room full of gods. Samson stayed behind her like a man trying to hold the world together with triage and voice alone, screaming orders to soldiers who were too terrified to listen. Evac Route 3, move, move. But the most dangerous thing in the facility wasn't any of them. It was what Ross had built. In the deepest chamber, a reactor-like gamma refinement core, designed to stabilize and amplify serum output. The controls began to spike. Not from sabotage, from resonance. Too many gamma signatures in one enclosed space. Too much power punching the same walls, making the system sing in a frequency it was never meant to sustain. The core's warning lights went from yellow to red to dead white. Samson saw it on a monitor and went cold. "Jennifer," he shouted. "The core, if it goes..." Jennifer heard him and understood instantly. If that chamber ruptured, it wouldn't be an explosion. It would be a gamma bloom, a wave of energy that would contaminate everything above it, everything around it, maybe half the coastline depending on how far Ross's hubris had built the blast radius. She didn't hesitate. She ran toward the core. Hulk was already there, standing between the core and Abomination like an instinct made flesh. Abomination roared, trying to force his way past. More beast than man now, rage and pride twisting him into something uglier than the Harlem version. Red Hulk slammed into both of them, and for one terrifying moment, the chamber became a pinball of the Titans. Concrete vaporizing, steel bending, heat rolling off Ross in waves. Jennifer hit the chamber wall like a meteor and planted her feet. "Stop," she shouted, voice huge, voice hers. None of them stopped, so she did the only thing a new Hulk could do against 3 older monsters. She made herself the point. She grabbed a heavy stabilizer column, one of the core's support pylons, and ripped it free with a scream that was half fury, half desperation. The column tore out of the floor, trailing cables and coolant lines. It sparked violently. She swung it like a lever and jammed it into the core's containment ring, forcing the ring back into alignment, just long enough for the readouts to dip. Seconds. But seconds mattered. Hulk turned, eyes wide, as if recognizing that this wasn't a fight anymore. This was a choice. Hulk roared, less rage, more command, and slammed his hands down on the floor, creating a shockwave that knocked Abomination back into a reinforced blast corridor. Jennifer lunged, webbing of emergency restraints still hanging from the ceiling, and wrapped them around Abomination's arms like chains. Abomination thrashed, but this time he was confined, just long enough. Red Hulk surged forward, heat flaring, aiming for Hulk's throat. Hulk caught him. They locked together, muscles trembling, and for a heartbeat Ross's eyes, inside the red, looked aware. Not kind, not sorry, just aware. You could have had order, Ross growled through clenched teeth. Instead, you gave them fear. Hulk's reply was a snarl that sounded like an accusation. You made this. Jennifer didn't let the argument become another punch. She grabbed a fallen blast door, thick, heavy, meant to withstand containment, and shoved it between them, forcing separation. Then she shouted over the alarms, "Get them out, now!" Samson's hands flew over controls. Overriding protocols Ross had locked. Emergency bulkheads slammed down in a chain reaction. Sealing abomination in a lower sector. Isolating the core chamber, cutting Red Hulk and Hulk off from the upper levels. The facility shook as the blast doors sealed. Jennifer stared at the final door closing, breathing hard, green skin slick with sweat and coolant. Hulk's roar echoed once, angry, trapped. Then Red Hulk's roar answered hotter, louder, and then the doors held. For now, up top, Fury's team moved fast, sweeping survivors into unmarked vehicles. Satellite feeds were scrubbed, witness statements were redirected. The story that would reach the public would be small and boring. Industrial accident, underground fire, no confirmed casualties. Jennifer stood outside in the rain at dawn, wrapped in a blanket that looked ridiculous over her new frame. She stared at her hands like they belonged to someone else. Samson approached quietly, face hollow. "You held them," he said. Jennifer's voice was rough. For how long? Samson looked away. Long enough to bury it. Jennifer's eyes burned. That's not an answer. Samson's voice cracked. It's the only one the government has. She turned toward the black SUVs, where Ross's people were already reclaiming the site, already writing the narrative. "Bruce," she whispered. Samson's throat bobbed. He's not coming out with them in control. Jennifer's jaw tightened as she realized the bitter truth. The world was about to lose Bruce Banner again, not to the Hulk, but to the people who claimed they were preventing the Hulk. Fury watched her from a distance for a moment, then walked up, rain beating on his coat. "You're Jennifer Walters," he said. She didn't bother playing dumb. "You're Nick Fury." Fury nodded once, faint approval. "You're not like Ross," he said. Jennifer's eyes hardened. Ross just became the thing he hates. "And you became the thing he wanted," Fury replied. "But you kept your mind. That matters." Jennifer's voice shook. "He's going to do it again." Fury's eye narrowed, "Which is why I'm here." Jennifer stared at him. "You're recruiting me." Fury's mouth tightened. "I'm offering you a place where you don't have to fight these battles alone." Jennifer looked back at the buried facility, at the sealed doors beneath the earth, and felt grief like a weight. "I'm not leaving Bruce," she said. Fury didn't argue. He just said quietly, "Then don't. But understand this. Ross is going to call what happened proof, and proof becomes funding." Jennifer swallowed hard. Above them, the sun tried to break through clouds and failed. 2 days later, in a hidden subterranean sector, beneath a new containment site, a reinforced cell held Emil Blonsky again, chained, sedated, furious. He stared at the ceiling like he was memorizing the shape of his next escape. Across the hall, behind thicker doors and heavier locks, another cell held a different kind of prisoner, Bruce Banner. Not fully conscious, not fully human. Monitored by machines that measured breath, pulse, and gamma saturation like weather. On a clipboard outside the door, a new designation had been typed. Subject, Banner, status, asset. Jennifer stood in the hallway with Samson beside her, staring at the door. "They're not going to let him go," Jennifer whispered. Samson's voice was quiet and bitter. "Not now that they've seen what they can build." Jennifer's hands clenched. "I'm going to get him out," she said. Samson looked at her, eyes tired. "Then you'll be fighting the government." Jennifer's gaze didn't waver. "Then I'll need help." In a separate lab, somewhere not on any map, Samuel Stearns sat in a dark room, lit only by monitors. His eyes were wrong now. Too bright, too focused, as if the gamma had rewired his ability to dream into an ability to calculate. On screen, Footage played of the underground battle. Heat signatures, tremors. 3 massive biosigns colliding. Stearns smiled slowly. Red, he whispered, delighted. Green, and stable green. He tapped a key and brought up a file with a new name. Project Leader. Then another file opened beside it. Ross's firebrand data. Stolen cleanly during the chaos. Stearns' smile widened. Thank you, General, he murmured. You just proved my theory. He leaned back, hands steepled. And now, Stearns whispered, as the monitors reflected in his glowing eyes, we make a Hulk who doesn't need anger at all. The multiverse just opened a new gateway. MissedThePart Productions is now on Ko-fi, our official hub where you help fund and shape new universes. Pay what you want. Commission custom what-ifs. Support the production fund. Join the creative circle. Support expand the multiverse.